Welcome to Out with Dan, the podcast that spotlights and examines the voices of LGBTQ+ authors, characters, and our allies. Together, we lift our voices and we tell our stories. I'm Dan White. Join me as I chat with this week's author. Hello and welcome back to Out with Dan. Today I'm excited to talk to Agatha Award-winning author Daryl Wood Gerber about Essence of Foul Play. Welcome, Daryl.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm pleased to be here. This is one of my favorite stories, and I love the cover.
I love the cover as well, too. Pink happens to be my favorite color, as you can see from my glasses today. So I loved it. So I know that you know what it is, but I really know that some of my audience will not know what a cozy is. So can you tell the audience what a cozy is?
Sure. So a cozy mystery is a traditional mystery like an Agatha Christie, but think Miss Marple as opposed to Hercule Poirot. Okay, Miss Marple is an amateur sleuth. She lives in a small town. She knitted, and so she had a group of friends, and a cozy is something like that you might be learning a new talent, or you may just be meeting somebody that does these cozy kinds of things. Cozy meaning that there's very little bad language on the page. Usually there's very little sex on the page. Usually it's always a whodunit. There is always a body that drops, so it's not that cozy. And by the end of the book, you do know that justice is served. So it's a much gentler rhythm of book, and a traditional follows into, then you can break it off into, you've got the noir, detective, and you've got the current detective, and you've got the budding PI detective, and you've got a cop detective. You've got all sorts of different, you've got the lawyer detective. So there are all sorts of professions that can do traditional mystery. But a cozy mystery usually falls into an amateur sleuth who's really not supposed to be investigating murder, but finds themselves, lost into the issue of it. Yeah. They get sucked in.
That's it. And so does the reader, because I think that's one nice thing about a cozy mystery is you also don't see specific violence. So we get eased into it. And I think that, with a lot of cozy mysteries, especially like if you're a recipe lover or a cat lover or a destination lover, whatever that category it falls into, you feel comforted by being a part of it. Unlike some mysteries where if it's violent, which I can read a thriller and a horror mystery as well, but it can be jarring. Whereas a cozy mystery is something you really can curl up with a blanket and a cup of tea and probably won't spit your tea out of fright.
Exactly right. I won't read horror, by the way, but I read thrillers. And you do sometimes feel like you're on the edge of your seat reading a thriller, as opposed to a cozy. You're going, oh, I know her. Oh, we're back with them again. Oh, I know these characters. And I think that does give you a sense of, everybody is within a realm of, like you said, comfort. We're friends until we find out the murder. Think about Agatha Christie and Jessica Fletcher. Okay. Murder, She Wrote. It's the Cabot Cove syndrome. You live in Cabot Cove, you're either a murder suspect or you're a victim. Right. And so you haven't heard that. So you got to be careful. On the other hand, then they started to move her, a couple seasons in, they started to move her to New York, where it was a little bit, grittier. And then all of a sudden she'd have, a cousin in Hawaii she had to go visit, because you couldn't kill so many people and have so many murderers in Cabot Cove.
That's right. A friend of mine used to say he would never invite that heifer for dinner because somebody at his house would die.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do love that. So this book is set in Carmel, or Carmel by the Sea. Why did you choose that location? Was there a reason?
Yes, there is a reason. So my previous series, the Fairy Garden Mysteries, are set in Carmel. And I was raised in the Northern California, and Carmel is a place that I would go to often as a kid. And it's one of my favorite calming places. And so when I wrote the Fairy Garden Mysteries, well, of course, there are fairies in Carmel. And so I figured that was the right place to set this fictional story, and then I create fictional locations within Carmel, so that no hotel, no store is going to say, "Excuse me, I'm going to sue you." So
That's true. And I get to make this joke because it's a little off color. We got fairies in West Hollywood, but it's a different kind. So I get to make that joke. And but it is so fairies are also in your new series as well, the
they,
Aroma Wellness series. So why fairies?
well, why
Is
fairies?
there is there a particular interest? Because I need a garden fairy because I kill every plant that I
Well,
touch
okay,
lately.
so that's a perfect example. I went to the Renaissance Fair a number of years ago, and I was there and I saw this woman making fairy gardens, and I fell in love with that. And then I went to a fairy garden store, and I learned all sorts of stuff about fairy gardening. And so I picked up a set, and I put all these things together. And as I was putting it together, I said, "Oh, what if I created somebody that is a fairy garden store owner?" Because it was a charming little store. And I said, "Excuse me, in Carmel." Because there's beautiful gardens and everything. You've got cottages, little houses. It looks like a fairy tale kind of town.
Mhm.
And for those that haven't seen it, look some pictures of Carmel. But little houses, gingerbread houses, and Tudor houses, and it's charming. And so when I was doing that, I thought, well, I like books about witches and I like books about ghosts, but nobody had written about fairies. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to have a protagonist, an amateur sleuth, who has a fairy who is a sleuth fairy that has to help humans solve crime in order to go back to the fairy world because she got booted out.
All
So
right.
that's the fairy garden mystery. So when I moved on to this one, I said to the editor, I said, "I'd still like to set it in Carmel." She said, "I'd love it in Carmel." I said, and she said, "But I don't want any sleuth solving,
Fairy.
fairies." And I went, "Okay." I said, "But I could still put a fairy in it," because I wanted to cross over some characters. So there are some crossover characters in this series that were in the Fairy Garden Mysteries. The librarian, Lissa Reed, is in it, and she's one of the major characters. And she does see fairies. So I wanted to, otherwise I couldn't use her as a character. And she said, "No, go ahead. I love Lissa. I think that's a great idea. Let's use that," because she said, I can see fairies being in this novel. We don't want them to solve the crime. And so they don't.
Okay. I
It's
love
just
that.
it's just a bit of whimsy.
It is, and it's so cute, and it's so wonderfully woven in. It
Oh,
is.
thanks.
It's well, and so I believe in things that I might not be able to see. So
Right.
for me, that's always something. I was talking to somebody yesterday about the fact that sometimes in life, I just call it the universe, but there's sometimes in life that I have to go left or right, and I could go either direction to get what I need. But I am a person that whatever the universe says, left or right, is what I do, because every time I do the opposite, I always regret having done the opposite. So I do think there are things that come along in our lives that bless us and gives us a bit of, direction, a little help, maybe a little fairy setting on the
Your
shoulder,
good
what have
angel.
you,
Yeah,
you
your
know.
good angel can give you just a boost. Come this way. This is
It's
smarter. Yeah.
great. Absolutely, absolutely. So now that we've sort of danced around it, how about give the audience an overview of what Essence of Foul Play is about?
Well, okay. So it Aroma Wellness Mysteries is what it's based on. And the Aroma Wellness Spa and gift shop and cafe are all in the Courtyard of Peace, which I created in Carmel. So isn't that perfect? That you'd have these three
Yep.
venues. So the owner, Emma Brennan, what she's trying to do is bring the idea of self-care to people, meditation, sitting with a sound bath, having a massage, taking care of yourself, getting a facial, eating the right healthy for you foods, but they're still going to taste good. Going to her gift shop and finding some wind chimes that just resonate and bring you some joy. So that's her whole mission. And she got this because her aunt, who lives in Sedona, is that same kind of person. She went to Tibet and she learned all about meditation, and she's just always been that person. Her mother, she does not get along with. Well, she gets along with her enough. But her mother loves Jane Austen. She's a literature teacher and a professor in college. And everything to her is pretty much black and white and blah, blah, blah. And this whole self-care thing for her mother is just a fantasy. Why is she doing it? So, but her grandmother, who is the town librarian, absolutely loves that she wants to do this and partners up with her to do it because she believes in everything that her daughter and now her granddaughter want to do. So that's the essence of foul play.
Oh, look at you on that play of words, Daryl. That's pretty darn good. You'd almost think you were an author or something.
You'd almost
all
think
those
so.
good words. And I also want to sort of pat you on the back. There's a couple of places where you mention words from other authors like Maya Angelou, the Dalai Lama. I thought that was so well placed because what it does is it gives even a further layer to what you as an author are telling to the audience, but
Right.
you're also giving a bit of a tip of a hat and an homage to other people that have obviously influenced you,
Right.
or
Well,
at least influenced your character. Maybe I should put it that
yeah,
way.
my character, I find that adding in she hangs plaques all over the spa, and they're good vibe and good thought, plaques, because that is what keeps her grounded. And I think that all of these things that she's doing are trying to keep her grounded, and because she found them valuable, then she can share those tools of self-care with other people. The meditations, I find myself when I'm writing them breathing better. I'm calmer. My
Yes.
voice goes down. I'll answer the phone, hello, because all of a sudden I find that I am calmer when I'm writing those pieces. So yeah, and when I go searching for some of these, quotes that she puts around or that her grandmother might give her or her aunt might give her, it makes me search all over the internet for good inspirational quotes, and it's sort of it's a joy.
And it is, and there's sometimes we come across these inspirational quotes when we get on a little bit of a rabbit hole. And sometimes I'm blown away by the person who made that quote because I'm like, there's a few things that Pearl Bailey, whom I loved as an
Yeah,
entertainer,
yeah,
she's actually had quite a few inspirational quotes. And I'm like, well, holy cow, that's not what I ever saw of her as an entertainer. She
yeah,
was always much more humorous, a good singer, great entertainer,
right.
but also was really quite deep. And I'm like, I just love that because there are days that Lord knows the entire world should get down a rabbit hole looking for a positive quote. And they just simply don't do it, even though I'd like to beat them until they do, which
Yeah.
would probably not be a very good thing either. But it's an
It's
idea.
not very uplifting to beat them, but yeah.
No, but I'm like, it might make me feel better, which it would not. So, so I just, that's a big thing with me also, because I think that, and I can certainly understand why the Fairy Garden mysteries would be as popular as they've been, is because, a lot of times in life, things like news media and sometimes just people sharing the same regurgitation wears us out. And I say to my friends, get out and go to the park, sit
Yeah,
against a tree,
that's it.
smell, stop and smell the rose.
Yeah.
While that sounds like such a cute little thing, every time I see a rose, I stop. I look for a bee first
Oh,
before I stick my nose in the rose, just in
that's
case.
smart.
Even though I love bees,
Yeah.
tremendously love bees, I don't want to be stung on the
They would
nose.
probably love you too.
They,
So
I actually think they do. So
yeah.
I talk to animals.
Yeah.
I try not to let other people see me talking to animals for fear. Why is Dan talking to a squirrel? But the squirrel
Well,
talks back to me.
but Sparky and I, my dog, Sparky and I will go out and we'll be walking and there's a bunny and I'll say, "Hey, bunny, did
Of
you see
course,
Sparky? Sparky wants to say hi." And the bunny
right.
just will look at me like, "I'm not moving. I'm frozen. I can't see you, but I'm still talking to the bunny."
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
But that's just what I think sometimes. So it's so wonderful to commune with nature and with the universe because that we do get fed positive things, and you meet other people that
Yeah.
have those same kinds of reactions. I
Yeah.
think
I
so.
actually talk to the hummingbirds that I feed because I'll go out and I have to change the bird feeder. And I'll say, "I'll be right back, birdies. Just hold on." And I go inside and I feed the birder and and I bring it back out and I go, "Okay, you can eat now."
And here they come.
Back they come.
That's right. Well, and I get up most mornings really early.
Yeah.
Have my coffee and open sliding glass door, and I wait
Isn't
for
it,
the birds. Wait for the
isn't,
birds to sing to me because
isn't
I'm
it
like,
beautiful?
it
Yeah.
is, and I think that God sends. I have a mockingbird, which
Oh,
I absolutely love because
really?
every morning around 4 o'clock, he or she begins their morning. They get up way early before the sun, talk all darn day long, and I think to myself, when do you nap? But I love the sound, so I'm like,
Yes.
you don't have to nap.
Oh, that's the kid. Well, they nap when it's dark.
They nap when it starts until about 4, though. They start before the
Yeah.
sun
They
comes up,
start before
which
the
is
sun.
rare.
Yeah.
So, but I love that. So, did you have a favorite character to write?
Well, in this series, like I said, I absolutely love Lissa Reed because she was in my previous series, and she has just grown now into a nice full-fledged character in this series. So I like her a lot. And Emma is so much fun because she's pretty much my kind of personality when I was in my 20s. I could be pretty spunky. Not like I'm not spunky now, but but I was pretty spunky, and I made her 25. My editor said, "Can we go young?" And I said, "You want that?" And she says, "Well, we're trying to reach a younger audience." I said, "Well, how about I cross the barrier and I have a grandmother with, we'll have old and young, and they're really good friends and they love each other." And she said, "Oh, I like that idea." And so but then throwing in her cousin, who's just a kick. Sierra is a chef, and she knows how to, cook all sorts of things and whatever. But she's also sort of a bossy boss of because they're like sisters, and because she was born just a little bit before Emma, excuse me, Jenna's in the other book. See, I do have to keep them straight. But when and the name sounds so familiar, but Emma and Sierra are really, really good friends. They live in the same fourplex. They talk at the same level, and so I've been having a fun time just developing these relationships. But one of my favorite characters is Emma's mother, Kate, because she's just so officious, and I love her to death because I know people like this. They just come in and
Mhm.
this is the way it's supposed to be, and you're wrong, and you should fix it. And she just sort of fits the bill for that. You're
Yeah,
wrong, darling. And Emma just has to dig in her heels and go, Mom, enough.
excellent.
Just
I love that because if I had to equate myself and where I've come from, I'd certainly say I'm the grandmother, but my mom would have been Kate because it was my mother's way or the highway. She was 100% sure she was right, and she did not mind telling you she was right.
yeah,
Yet, just like Emma and Kate, I loved
yeah,
my mom, and we got along really. I mean, we got along as
right.
well as we could. We
Yeah.
just weren't we were similar in a lot of ways and different in a lot of ways. And
And water and oil the other times. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and the greatest thing is you've given us a mother-daughter relationship that they're very, very different, but they're not contentious with each other, which I think is also a pleasant thing to
Right.
read.
Right. Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't mind the contentious when it's warranted, but you've got such a close-knit community that I actually think if Emma and Kate didn't at least try to get along, it would probably be disruptive in this book.
Right. And I think what Emma gets, she gets the humor side of her mother. Kate likes to be called Kate. She doesn't like to be called mommy. She's not mama. She might get away with mother, and so occasionally she'll do that. Kate can't see fairies. Emma can't either. She's not sure if her grandmother is lying about this. But she wants to. And Kate is adamant that they just don't exist. Don't be, frivolous. So, and even Sierra can't see them, doesn't think they exist either. So now
No,
she
no.
sort of bonds with Kate on that. So there are just things that I think that you get a family like this, and you spread it out, and then you get all the friends that come into it. And like I said, there's some crossover characters from the fairy garden, so they know Lissa, and Lissa knows them. And I like that Carmel is such a small town. I truly believe that everybody knows each other's business.
No,
They
I
they
lived
all
in
go
small
in
towns.
Carmel, they have one post office. You have to go get your mail at the post office. So you run into people all the time at the post office.
Yeah,
So they don't like
that's
to
the way
put
I grew up.
mailboxes up. Only recently did they start saying that you have to have a number on your door or on your house or whatever because of deliveries like Amazon. You can't say third house from the left with the white fence. You can't do it. Amazon will lose you. So they have to start putting up numbers.
Yeah, yeah.
And the resistance, oh my gosh.
I can imagine. I can imagine cities like we live in here in LA, you have to have one on the curb so the fire department can find you if necessary. But yeah, I grew up in a little village in eastern North Carolina. Oh, I think I got a house number when I was a senior in high school. Nobody wanted to put a number on their house, which is sort of, well, I don't think we had a number. I think we officially had a number, but there was never a number on the door because
that's it. You have an official number. Yeah.
Well, we couldn't get mail delivery. If you lived in the city limits, you had to get your mail at the post office.
Same thing.
There was no door to door. So, and I love that quaintness, but it is true. I don't think anyone has any business that everybody else doesn't know.
That's right. That's right.
So in the back of your book, and I believe I read somewhere that it is in most of your books, you have recipes.
I do. I'm a culinary mystery author. That is, I got my start writing the Cheese Shop Mysteries, which I wrote as Avery Ames.
Okay.
And those are these.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Yeah.
I learned a lot about cheese when I was writing that. And the reason I got that, it was a work for hire. Berkeley, Prime Crime, wanted someone who could write a cheese shop mystery. And so I got a crack at auditioning for it because I just wasn't resonating yet. I had agents say, I love your work, but I can't sell this, da-da-da-da-da. And I was getting ready to quit. I was just about done with my career when an agent who I'd met at a conference said to me, do you think you could write about cheese? And I said, sure, I've catered. I could do this. And so I said, how many people are auditioning? And she said, well, you got the first crack. You have 3 weeks.
Oh, my. So,
I know.
3 weeks for a book or a pitch?
No. So 3 weeks for 3 chapters.
Okay.
And they gave me the Bible. The Bible was, these are the characters. This is who we want to die. And the body has to drop by the end of the 3rd chapter. And set it in a town in Ohio.
Okay.
I'm from California, and I thought all cheese came from California or Wisconsin. I was wrong. I learned that cheese comes from everywhere. And in the Amish territory, there's an absolutely great wealth of cheese in there. So I went out to Ohio and I did some research and I got some pictures and everything else. But I didn't do that until I got the contract. But it was fun. I went to cheese shops and I tasted. My husband and I went. He was just in love with this idea of me doing cheese, and I gave them my 3 chapters. And my girlfriend said, well, just they might not decide for the agent might not decide for 3 to 4 weeks to get back to you. And she called me that night. And she goes, I love this. I'm sending off to the publisher. And I went, oh, okay.
All right.
And so she sent it to the publisher and she said, now it could take 3 to 4 weeks for them to respond. And by Friday we had a contract. So I learned I could write food mysteries. And I am a foodie and I love catering, like I said, and I love cooking and I love baking. I'm a celiac. So I had to, incorporate some of my gluten-free recipes in there as well. But I cook for all the different holidays of the year. So yeah, I put in recipes. And even in a fairy garden mystery, or aroma wellness, I've got good for you recipes, things made with honey and things that have acai in it, which I did not know how to pronounce until my grandchildren said, it's not acai.
I didn't know what it was. I thought it was acai as well. Oopsie.
Yeah, it's acai. It's a little blueberry and it's a, superfood. And so to learn all those things, I made a kale smoothie. It's actually delicious.
It's kale green. Banana, right? It's
kale banana, pineapple, and honey.
Right.
And it turned out to be delicious because I wouldn't drink any of those green drinks. But I decided that this was the right kind of food to have in this courtyard. And she's a great chef. She can cook all sorts of things. But in this particular venue, this is what she is doing, is trying to create things that will be helpful for the people that are coming to get massages and meditation.
Well, I am going to tell you, let me see which one it is. Hold on, people.
Okay.
They'll get to see me try to find something. I should have put a bookmark in.
Put it.
God damn it. So anyway, because I just passed it by, it's a lemon one. What's the lemon one?
Oh, lemon cookie.
Yes, so
The
I'm
lemon
going to
butter
try
cookies.
that. I'm going to
Those
try
aren't
that.
good for you.
Good.
Those are from Lissa Reed. Lissa knows how to cook sugar.
Right. I'm going to make those, and I'm going to post them on social media, and I'm going to tag you as soon as I can.
Good.
It isn't going to be today, but it's going to be soon.
They're yummy. And any butter cookie is yummy.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Daryl, this has been so much fun. Again, the book is Essence of Foul Play. You will not be disappointed.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's always good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too. Thank
Be
you.
well.
All right, you too.
Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Out with Dan. You can find more information about this podcast and its host at outwithdan.com, on Twitter at outwithdan, and on Instagram and Facebook at GoOutWithDan. This podcast is hosted by Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and the theme music is provided by bensound.com. Join us again soon for the next episode of Out with Dan.